Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today in what is probably your lunch hour. Appreciate your time and focus on the subject today. We'll be introducing the new dual enrollment application. Again, thank you for joining us. I want to let you know captioning is available via the Zoom closed caption button. You should see it in your dashboard. Today's session will be recorded and will be available within 5 to 10 days, approximately. And then for now, please use the chat tool for questions and comments. And that's the end of our house cleaning. So I will turn this show over to Jane Linder at this point. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll give you the clear when we can see your screen.
Can you see this?
We can see it. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Sandoval. Let me get into slideshow mode. All right. As Sandoval said, we very much appreciate you coming to see this. We're pretty excited about it, and I hope you will be as well. This is certainly something we've been developing for almost 3 years, actually a little over 3 years, with the help of many of you who I hope are here to see how it all came out. My name is Jane Linder, and I'm the director of our Student Success Suite at the Technology Center. That means that my team and I are in charge of the student-facing systems like the account system and CCC Apply applications and our onboarding system, iPath. All right, so why did we do this? And it is a direct request from you. We were reached out to about, like I said, 3.5 years ago from a consortium of colleges, mostly in the State Center area, who provided a really excellent analysis of CCC Apply and the fields that they felt were not needed for dual enrollment students, with a request to have either a separate workflow within the existing CCC Apply or to build a new application. At the time, we were already working on a new application architecture because the legacy system was very outmoded. And we wanted to be able to have a platform that allowed us to do specific workflows for specific student groups, because we had a lot of fields that everybody fills out but aren't really applicable to everybody, as I'm sure many of you know better than we do. So this is a direct response because you are our only customer. We're focused entirely on the California Community Colleges system. So we're going to be talking about how, as we continue with this application and get to rolling it out, we're going to be actually inviting you during multiple phases of pilot testing to co-develop with us as we finish off and get your input and tweak things to make sure it's ready for our specific system. This is also a response to the Vision 2030 goals, in terms of finding, new pathways for our future learners, and certainly our dual enrollment students are an important segment of that. And also recognizing what is missing and what doesn't work, and continuing what does. So we will delve in on that as well. A streamlined path for your future learners. What we heard when we started working with the work group on the dual enrollment application is that they get lost. A lot of our dual enrollment students, the youngest students, they typically have no experience with any kind of major application system, and they get lost in the current standard app. They select the wrong option because the one that applies to them is 6 options down, and options 2 and 3 look like they might apply to them. And so if they, if they're guessing and they're selecting the wrong option and they don't understand why they're being asked, questions that don't seem to apply to them, it gives them a bad experience. It also gets them lost if they do check, those wrong options. They're processed differently at the colleges, and sometimes they can get, misdirected. So we set out for a better application experience, and one that will guide them to the right options, or not even display the question if there's only one option that applies to them. And so we're doing that, and you'll see that. And we don't want them to miss this opportunity to get a really good head start on their education and career goals. We also know that a super fast, super easy application is going to make them feel like, hey, I can do college. This is the first thing they see. And even before they start classes, if we can make this experience better for them, we think it'll build their confidence. And we're hoping this will also encourage them to continue at the community college system, giving them, again, kind of a good pathway into that, and recognize the value that the community college system offers them, which I very much believe in as a student of the system who did 2 years at College of the Canyons and then transferred to UC Santa Cruz. I know how much that can save when you're putting yourself through college. Sorry. All right, the Student Success Suite 2.0 application goal, and this encompasses a dual enrollment application as well as other applications. We're going to build on this same architecture as I mentioned. This has been in the works since 2018. We started building the architecture for a new student account and application system, again, in response to feedback from the field, but also evaluations by external vendors on like what we could tweak and what we could do and how we could streamline. So this has been in the works for a long time, and we have already made major steps, and we'll talk about that a little later. And now we're ready to tackle the applications. So the goal, we want something truly innovative with a lot of modern technology, with a student-centered approach to onboarding, while we also have things in the background to develop more rapidly, streamline the user experience based on who the student is, something that's tailored to them, not just a one-size-fits-all, and reducing those unintended impacts. And I think you'll see the dual enrollment application does all of this. We have kept this very much in mind. We have had multiple design reviews with students along the way, and we've actually kicked off our phase 1 pilot. I'll talk about that more in depth later with a number of schools and students who are going to be really beating up this end-to-end application workflow and giving us the feedback that we need to open it up to a more broad pilot later for all of you to get in and tell us how it's looking. You'll see we're only asking what's relevant to these students. We've removed redundant questions. We have the privilege at the Technology Center of being housed with the system-wide accessibility team and center. And so they beat up on us. And I've even been talking about, through the pilot period, we're going to have them do multiple reviews. They don't pull any punches. For those of you who have worked with our accessibility team, they're passionate about what they do, and we really are focused on making sure accessibility is part of this. And we heard loud and clear, why don't we have more languages than just English and Spanish? And we agree with you. We should have languages that reflect the diversity of our state. And so with this demo, we have done that, and I'll show you. Just the architecture to give you a kind of taste of what it is it's completely cloud native. It's mobile first. It's the most modern system that even some of our vendors who we integrate with have seen. When we integrated with IDMe, they said they'd seen nobody had an identity management system that was as easy to integrate with as us. And they'd work with DMV and EDD and many other agencies. And they were really, really kind of blown away by how easy it was to integrate with us with the modern technology we have. As I said, we're mobile first with this design. That doesn't mean mobile friendly, which the legacy apply tried to be, and I don't think has made it. It is mobile first. We know that increasing numbers of our students are using their mobile devices to apply. We have a very highly configurable and streamlined business logic. It's easy for us to branch and to show questions or not, depending on what the students tell us. And we're thinking about the workflow differently as a response. And again, you'll see that in the demo. We have a lot more in terms of the ability to monitor and make sure that our system operations are completely stable. This is a mission critical system. We take that seriously. And we've already built a lot into the architecture that we're benefiting from today in terms of that kind of infrastructure. We'll have some enhanced data delivery mechanisms and an analytics platform for reporting that is, I think, much, much better than what we're using right now. And we'll talk about that as well. And the dual enrollment application is running on this architecture. Okay, just a little bit more about the modern interface design. We're using simplified language. The language that you'll see in the demo has been run through to be at 8th grade level. And so you won't see, I attend high school. it says, when we have the drop-down list, it says something like, I go to high school. Again, we're trying to speak to our students at a level that's just a lot easier for them, not so formal, not so much institutional language. Again, we put a lot of intentional thought into that. We have a lot of better performance on this and better security. Also, rapid development. For those of you who have heard me talk about our approach to the dual enrollment system in earlier demos or discussions on this, one of my biggest frustrations is sometimes we'll have a legislative mandate for a change, and it's a very small change. It's a text change. The foster youth question was reduced to, instead of 16 and older for exiting foster youth, the legislature asked us to change that to 13 and older. One digit, and we had to roll a release and a developer for that. We don't have to do this anymore. The text and the design the text is not tangled in with the code, which means that when that comes across our desk now, I could actually get in, I could change it from 6 to 3. We bounce the server, overnight, and it's done. I don't know that developers are going to give me that power, but it could be done. And we certainly don't have to, have a whole release vehicle doing it. So it gives us a lot of ability to make changes so much more rapidly, which is something we need in our system. And as I mentioned, again, because the text and the code aren't tangled in the web page design the way that it is in our legacy system, with a lot of the new capabilities we have the static text content that's separate. It is super, super easy to internationalize and add new languages, which is why you're going to see in this demo 10 languages. We decided to challenge ourselves last month and say, for these demos that we're doing at SISWA and here, we wanted to show how easy it was to pull in new languages. So we challenged ourselves to do that. We used the new technology to export the text files, send it to a vendor who took about a week to translate it, and put it back in. And the entire process took 2.5 weeks, 10 languages. All right. So this is really exciting to us, what this platform can do. All right. Without further ado, I'm going to switch to the demo.
Jane, while you're pulling that, we have a question on chat. Will there be more options for students other than selecting currently enrolled in high school? They're wondering if there will be more options for students enrolled in K-8.
Well, so you're talking about, is that specifically a question about whether they would be allowed to select middle school? Is that the question?
Yeah. Hang on, I'm expanding that. Joel, if you have any thoughts, or I don't know if you can come up mute and expand on your question.
Hello there. Hi, this is Sandoval. Jane, will there be more options for students other than selecting currently enrolled in high school?
Right. I guess what I'm asking is that there's been a number of, in the work groups, there have been a number, and over the years, there have been a number of requests to add middle school to that because so I guess I'm wondering if that's the question.
And it's that is followed by, I wonder if students enrolled in K-8 will have more options.
So the middle school, yes. I don't know that we can go lower. And the reason for that is because we've already researched this and are planning on working it into this application. It might not happen for the initial release, but we have it on our list for an enhancement. We just need to obtain a list of middle schools. Right now, we get a list of high schools and colleges from the College Board with some other information from the Department of Ed. So I believe we did find out that we can pull middle schools. So that is something that we want to do for this application.
Great. And can you define that for us, Jane? Middle school, 6th grade?
I'm going to have to check the Department of Ed because I think they have a blend of what they call still junior high schools that are listed in their list, as well as middle school, which is, I think, again, that could be anything from 6th grade to 8th grade, or it could be 4th grade to 8th grade in our research. So whatever is defined, we'll have to figure it out, because what's the limiter for that really is wanting to try as much as possible to cover the drop, in the school finder, the schools that can be covered by that. So more to come. That's why I'm saying it may be an enhancement after the initial release of this, because we have to actually work with the field and figure out how we're going to do that. High schools are out there, colleges are out there, but not necessarily all the middle schools and elementary schools.
Understood. That's clear. One more brief question, please. Mitch is asking, how was the list of languages established? the comment is it does not seem to follow the worldwide figures of spoken languages.
No, actually, we looked at California census data.
Yeah.
As well as immigration statistics, and we picked the top 10 language groups. The only two we don't have on this list that were in the top 10 is Arabic and Farsi, because those are right to left, and we wanted to do additional testing on how the right to left design looked. So those will be added, and we are open to other language. For those of you who have been in other sessions with me, I would really like to see us support the same number of languages that we support in our voter registration and other statewide, bulletins, and that's 42. I don't know. It's about funding, because when it comes to languages, it's not just the initial translation. It's every release and keeping that up across that many languages. So it's really going to come down to our collaboration with the Chancellor's Office on what we can support.
And just one more plug in this area. Kate has commented, so excited about the expanded language options, and right in time with what you're saying, we would love to see Arabic, Farsi, and Portuguese as well.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. So
thanks. We'll let you keep.
Yeah, thank you. All right, let me get to here and oops. All right, so here we are. This is our pilot environment. This is what our phase 1 pilot schools, and we'll be talking about them, are going to be testing in. And so I wanted to show you this because, and I want to go through the sign-in simply because I want to show you that it's already integrated with our account system. So the account system looks the same. It's the same sign-in. It's a different URL. And so we're going to be working out the implementation plan with you, because this will be running in parallel with the legacy application. And we know that there are things we're going to need to consider. We have already considered some of them, and I'll show those in the demo. But we know that as we go through testing with you, there's going to be other things that you're going to see that we might not, and that's why we're having a long extended pilot to get it worked out. So let me enter this. All right, so here's the dashboard. As you can see, again, very clean design. You're going to notice as we go through this, it's what's called a short form display, which works best for mobile devices. And also just in general, the feedback from our student testers is they preferred a short form design, which kind of is one question at a time and doesn't have the really long form that we have today. But just so you know, I'm not blowing smoke here. Here's our list of languages. Look at this. So you can, it works with the student's browser settings. So if your browser settings are for any of these languages, it'll automatically display. But we've got Spanish, and we've got Tagalog, we've got simplified Chinese, traditional Chinese, and there it all is. So again, we are super excited about this. I just get really excited every time I can show how easy it was for us to do these languages in 2.5 weeks of time. All right, so we're going to click apply. There you go. See, it's got this very streamlined, one at a time. We're asking them, when would you like to start classes? We're not saying select a term. Yes, we do actually say choose a term below, and that was also intentional, because where possible, the idea is to introduce, the academic idea, language that they're going to be interacting with as students, but at the same time, not making that the basis of the question. Again, that simplified language. So we start off with choosing a term, which is similar to what we do today. And the reason that's important is because it gives us dates to work with. And how those dates work is key to this branching logic that's going to be across the dual enrollment application as well as others. So you'll notice we don't now go into yet ed goals and all that sort of stuff. The next questions we ask are things like, have you graduated or not? Because as you guys, again, as you know and have told us, that tends to be a huge dividing point. Have you graduated or not? And it's a way we can tell a dual enrollment student from another student, especially when, all right, if you say, I'm going to, just for the sake of showing you how we have some ways to get students away from this application if it's not the right one. If they say they have graduated, they're going to go, immediately be redirected to the standard application. Again, this messaging we want to tighten up, because our students' feedback was that we don't know what the standard app is. So we're going to be fixing this language with your help. But we do redirect them. And if they proceed, they don't have to re-sign in, because again, the sign in and the login's all the same account. It'll just take them to the standard application where they can actually fill that out, because they're in the wrong place. So you're dual enrollment students, so you have not graduated from high school. All right, we're going to submit that. The next thing we ask them is, when do you expect to graduate? Because this is the key thing, right? If we know they haven't graduated, they could either be dual enrollment or they could be a student who will be graduating and is wanting to start in fall as a incoming new student. And that's a different sort of workflow, obviously. So what we ask them next is, when do you expect to graduate? Just the month and the year. We don't ask the date because nobody ever knows their date, not even students who are coming up to it mostly. And the only person in all the sessions I've run where we talked about this and work groups who knew the date that they graduated when it had been a few years before was someone who graduated on their birthday. So what we do is we're just asking the month and the year, and we're defaulting to the first of the month for whatever month they chose. Again, we had a lot of discussion with the work group about this. We're still putting a date in the background because all the downstream systems expect that date. But really, we're just asking for the month and the year. What happens when we know this is we compare that to the start date for the term they selected 2 questions ago. And then we know everything we need to know that they're a dual enrollment students in 3 questions. So this is, again, the sort of thing we're doing with this new application platform. We want to kind of think about how we're flowing it and how to direct students on the right pathway. All right, so we have that expected day. All right. What you haven't seen, and I'm going to point over here to the left, we have also a lot of feedback on, hey, this is how far you've come, with encouragement about you're just getting started. Again, we want to figure out what to say when they're halfway, when they're all the way through, and that's something we're going to work on with our pilot schools. But there's this indication of, what you've done. You'll see enrollment's done. In 3 questions, enrollment's done, because what we've done in the background is we've selected an ed goal that's just the default. It's the educational development ed goal, which, again, working with the work groups that we did developing this, said that's the most common one. We can revisit it. So there have been some suggestions on maybe having a dual enrollment specific ed goal. But for now, that is the default that we're using. We're also not selecting majors. And I know that a lot of schools like to set up their dual enrollment students with an educational plan, but that's not what's in the legislation. Legislation says it's, when they're actually a full-time student, graduated. And so we intentionally, again, with the work group's partnership, we removed the majors. So we'll talk a little bit about how that will impact the data that's getting to you on the application, but that already is what we had decided. So we've already skipped through one section. We're 40% through another. So
All right, Jane,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt, but we're getting quite a few questions stacking up in chat. So just wanted to know, do you want to take these questions now, or should we?
I would like to wait till we go through the whole demo, and then we can.
Very good.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So for everyone, please continue to come with chat questions in the chat, and we'll circle up after the demo. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, again, see, 8th grade language, what do they do? I go to high school. All right, we have a very new school picker. It's not as easy for students to type it in, and it's a much more responsive in terms of what they type in. And I'm going to just go ahead and pick this. Highest grade completed. We are including the transcript questions. Again, that was in collaboration with the work group. These are not these are needed for placement, and so we did keep in the transcript questions. All right, we're already at parent guardian information. Again, just want to show you. We've kept these questions, of course. We're not asking about their parent or guardian's education level or anything like that. Again, they're not necessary, and the point is to streamline this. And not only that, but one of the feedbacks we got from one of our students was, I'm really tired of how many times this application asks me how ignorant my family is or poor we are. So, it just was, again, trying to be very welcoming. These are questions they will ask, go through later with the standard application when they are full-time students, but make it as easy as possible for this group. All right, these are the gender questions and the things like that, optional, completely optional. And so they can say what they decline to state, or they can go on and they can answer the questions. Just going to validate the address. Sorry, I forgot to add that. And we're at the consent form. And this, unfortunately, we were not able to make 8th grade language because it's legalese that we actually have is from our legal team, which is a bummer. Here's your review. It shows them everything that they've selected, submit. And, again, legalese about saying that what you're doing is true. And we're done. All right. Obviously, when we submit and we have this in production, we'll have a like, hey, you've done it, and that sort of thing. Again, that's something we want to work out in messaging with our pilot colleges, because we know there's probably something more specific you want to say than what we have in CCC Apply right now. So that'll be part of it. But as you can see, I mean, on average, this is taking only maybe 3 minutes if you don't talk as much as I am in between. So super, super fast, super streamlined. And let's talk a little bit about the questions.
Michael, you want to MC these?
Yes, Sandoval. I've got to go way back. Hang on.
Yeah, thank you. There's quite a few. I'll assist as well.
Yeah. There is going to be there's a question on timing of the release of the application itself. Jane's going to cover that, including pilot details. But Jane, let's start with that one. I know it's $1 million question.
Yeah. So we have the end-to-end workflow done, and like I say, in the 10 languages and all of that baseline. Again, this is you're stealing the thunder from the second half of my presentation. So we are planning for an extended pilot through the rest of 2025 with 3 phases in it to make sure we get everything right. So I'm just going to leave it at that. We're going to get in detail in about 5 minutes.
Okay. I've received some recommendations on additional languages in private messaging. I'll add it to my notes to share. But please keep that coming. And anyone who's got that has additional recommendations. Let's see. We covered that one. There was question or Mitch's comment about we also need to think about international students. If there's a conversation already going around it, I'll let you address that, Jane, real quick.
International students meaning dual enrollment international students, or international students meaning
this was Jane. This was related to the language question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
was just pointing out that the international students need to be considered as well. So in terms of the languages chosen,
right?
Yeah.
In parallel with California languages. Thank you.
Yes.
For dual enrollment applicants, will ID.me verification pop up or be required?
If they are under 18 at this point, it does not, because ID.me doesn't really have a way to to verify minors. They say they're working on an enhancement for that, and at that point it would pop up. But that is actually something I have as an open question, along with some other fraud-related questions for our pilot colleges and work group conversation, because we do need to have a discussion about that. So I think what we need to do is just pause on that, and the next time I show this off, when we're through our pilot testing or just before UAT, we can have that finalized. I think it's just an open question right now. We need to work out together.
When a student creates an account as a dual enrollment student, will that account also be the same login if the student decide to apply as a first-time college student with any of our colleges?
Absolutely. It is fully integrated. This is going to be working in parallel with the legacy system, so that they're already got their account established and they go right into the standard application.
Yep. Are the only options for term the dual/enrichment option?
Right now, yes, that is what we worked out with the work group after 3 months of discussion. The plan is to take that into pilot. And one of the reasons why we are having an extended pilot on this is because we need to make sure that all of this is going to be working and kind of work as a system to get consensus on what that works. That was a consensus of the work group. And we worked with the work group for many years, starting in like, I think 2021, and then having another last work group sessions, 3 or 4 of them this spring, or last spring, sorry. And this is what we decided.
A question about data delivery to the colleges through Superglue. When a student uses translation feature, is the language translated back to English before it's delivered to the school?
Yes, absolutely.
Sam, how will a senior self-select in the scenario since they're currently in high school but applying for a future term? That's
Oh, well,
going back to the
yeah,
the
so they
demo.
would they
Yeah.
would say they have not yet graduated. And then we ask them when they will, and they give us that future date. So
Yep.
that would be the way. That's how we figure out when they say they haven't graduated. That's how we figure out whether they're a dual enrollment student or whether they're applying for the fall term after they've graduated. So they give us that future date of month and year.
Awesome. And thanks, Patty. She's been jumping in, addressing questions as quickly as she can. Will this application be open to students in adult schools?
And I'm sorry, in other schools in
Adult?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, adult special admin is part of this. Yes. This is for
Yep.
minor dual enrollment students and adult special admin. Absolutely. And adult special admin, as you know, again, you'll notice you never saw the option for I'm an adult special admit, attending college classes, and the same thing for the minor, because we know from their date of birth, which we have on the account system, we know who they are. We know what they are. They're a dual enrollment student. That's only one value that applies to a minor and only one that applies to an adult. So we pick it in the background and they never see it. But it's in that review and it's there.
Yep. Could we ask students for their current grade level and automatically calculate their expected high school graduation date?
I don't think we need to do that because they tell us explicitly, right, in this workflow.
The additional comment is many dual enrollment students are unsure of their graduation year.
Oh, really? That's interesting because I know, usually it's like class of 2021. Huh. Okay. Yeah. Let's talk about that. They do give their highest grade completed already. So I would rather not ask another question. I mean, the whole point is not to, right? I'd rather let's talk again, we're going to be having follow-up discussions. Let's talk about the things they do, like those transcript questions, and see if we can use those.
I think I see a question here that piles on with that as well. And it's saying we ask students for their current grade level and automatically calculate their expected high school graduation date.
Right.
So
Right.
another approach.
Yeah, right.
And there's the additional comment is that many dual enrollment students are unsure of their graduation years. So
Right. Yeah. No, I'm glad to hear that. But again, we have the transcript questions that they tell us the highest grade that they have completed, and that might be a way that we can calculate as well.
did we answer Mitch's question, Michael, regarding where is the colleges that
No, I think Mitch's question is coming up. I see it in my radar here. He's got quite a few, so I'm going to
very
try
good.
to group them together. Good to hear from Mitch. Will it allow the student to upload their high school transcript?
I'm sorry,
Will
can
the
you repeat that? I cut out,
Y-
my audio cut out for some reason.
Yeah, will the application allow the student to upload their high school transcripts?
The application system has ability to do that. Yes. We have that technology in place now. We haven't built it out yet. So the possibility is there, but it's not a part of what we have as this minimum required first release. Again, many of these questions about things it can do are things we need to decide what are the priorities. And so that's actually going to be the focus as we kind of work together to get this out the door in the next 6 to 8 months, is what is truly minimally required.
I'm not sure if I'm quite tracking this question, but I'll ask and you can chime in, Jane. One of the questions from it is, where is the college's attended info? We need that for residency determination in some cases.
Yeah,
We,
we're not doing residency determination. That's why it's not there. There are no residency and citizen questions, period, because we did our statistical analysis and found that 99.9 of the dual enrollment students from the 23-24 school year that we looked at the whole cohort were citizens. And then the other thing we found is that the majority of them are paid students, and so we don't need residency. But if the students are going to do more than 12 units, they have to fill out the standard application anyway. They would be referred there. So that is, again, this is all based on work group conversations over many months. Okay, Kathy.
another question. Oh, sorry, go on.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah, Kathy, can you chat your question?
Another question from Mitch. How will colleges collect data that is not entered in the application? For instance, IPEDS data.
We're working with MIS and the research teams at the chancellor's office because part of what we need to do is get, the approval, to remove all the things that we have. So we have, created a decision form for them to do, and we're in discussions with them to ensure that it's okay for anything that you have to report on that we're not giving you, you don't have to report on. And to negotiate on what data is, again, minimally required.
Thanks, Jane. A few questions related to the parent question. Can the parent AB30 form be triggered as part of this application?
Yes, it can be. We have built in here, and let me show you here. These are what we normally call, if you scroll down, these are what onboarding task cards. These are just standard task cards to show you but what you can have here is you could have something where when we understand you're a dual enrollment student that would trigger a parent form that could be filled out. But I mean, the reason we don't have this showing here right now is that we've had so many people say, well, we already have Adobe Sign, or, we have dualenroll.com. It does it all for us. So that was something that we didn't have in the scope for the original application. But again, we have these onboarding tasks that are on the new technology that allow us to create things that you would say, dual enrollment form, or, we could even message the student with and tell them they have a dual enrollment form. So that's a possibility. Again, what we need to come to consensus on is what you need to get this out as quickly as possible so that you can start using it. And then what would be priority for future development. So that is going to be our major discussion over the pilot period.
And a related clarification question was, are we asking the student parent question to meet AB 2881?
It's not on there now because, again, we went ahead and we went back and we looked at all the data we had for that question, which admittedly is only we only had about a year's worth of data at the time. And none of our dual enrollment students that were, we have a dual enrollment workflow in the current legacy application that triggers based on some questions. It doesn't remove as much as this. And none of them were student parents. So that's what we have now. Again, we even looked at adult special admit, and we didn't see anybody mark that. But again, we only had like a year to 9 months of data on that. So right now, we do not ask that. Again, especially of the minors, we don't. But again, I know that doesn't necessarily mean they aren't.
Thanks, Jane. Couple of, well, actually, a lot of great suggestions or notes about some of the current issues students running into, like Street 1 and Street 2 proving to be confusing to applicants. Can that be updated to state mailing address or self-populate as it's being entered?
Yeah, I think that's great feedback on making it more accessible. Oh, and I'm sorry, I do remember why we don't ask them the student parent question. And Patty is probably already answering this in the chat. But the reason we didn't ask that is because it's a priority registration question, and we did eliminate anything that had to do with priority registration because, again, feedback from the work group was that these students already have their registration set and their courses set. They don't need priority registration.
A question related to notification if the application gets caught in the fraud monitoring system. Will students receive an email if their application has been flagged for fraud?
So I can't really talk. There's a reason around this notification, and I'm not going to talk about it because it's fraud related. We're recording this. It's going to be publicly available. However, if you want to hang around afterwards, we can, turn the recording off, and then I can answer some of those questions, but I can't right now.
You addressed about residency. We don't do that in this app. Can you add supplemental questions?
No, not at this point. Again, that was a decision to try to make this as streamlined as possible. And, we're trying to avoid doing anything different. I'd rather us come up with a consensus that works for the whole system. And also the other thing is I'd actually like to look at things differently where we have things that might be helpful to a number of colleges. We put it in as an optional configurable question rather than a supplemental question, something that actually would conditionally display if you turn it on. That's kind of how we're looking at it a little bit more for this new system. Not to say that we're ruling out supplemental questions, but we'd like to actually, we'd like to come with a more focused approach to them. If we have 60 colleges asking the same general thing, I think we should just allow it to be turned on for them and off for others. For example, things about, baccalaureate degrees and things that, there's a few schools that do that. Things about, justice involved minors. We have a lot of requests for questions that are important to a number of colleges, but right now we don't have conditional display like that. So that's how we're thinking about supplemental questions in the new system. But again, it's not like we can't do supplemental questions. We would just like to, as a system, rethink it and see if we can do it better.
Yep. Quick question about phone number associated with the account. Will students be able to proceed if they do not put a phone number in? We have an issue with that happening, which causes a lot more work for a registration team.
I think so, but I don't want to. I want to say, Mike or Patty, you might know more clearly. I thought we could skip phone as long as we had a verified email, but that's an account system question rather than an application question. So that'll be one we can follow up with when we publish the presentation.
Yeah. Back to about completing high school. For those whose high school students graduate in June and are applying for summer classes which start in May, our school determines those students as high school graduates for the summer semester. How would this application work for that situation?
So I guess the question would be, when would they put it? What would they put as their graduation? Is that area, if they're starting in May, are the feeder schools graduating in May, in which case it would default to May 1st and it would be fine. But again, that's something we can try to tease out in terms of this. When we worked with the work group, everything that we could research showed that it would be a good dividing line between the graduating students in summer and then the others. We did take a look at the summer sessions, so it looked to us like it was going to work, but let's talk about it.
Okay. So we have a lot of questions in. Did you want to go back and talk a little bit about timeline and come back to questions, or do you want to keep going with the questions, Jane?
I only have about probably 5 minutes more to kind of go through the rest of the presentation, so I think we should do that. And then we may not get to any of them. I really love all of the questions because these are things we need to address in the next 6 to 8 months while we get this into production. Please keep them coming. All right, so let me. Oh, go ahead.
And I'll let Sandoval jump in. Even if we can't get to all the questions and notes, your questions and comments will be preserved. We will be passing this on to the product team for review, and we will circle back for clarification or additional questions or to take them into consideration.
Thank you, Michael. That's correct. Yes. If in the event that we do not get to all of the chat questions during this session today, we will review the chat log and put together essentially a FAQ or a QA response. Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, so how are we doing this? Again, we have default values for questions where only one answer applies to dual enrollment student, or there was consensus across our work group that this was the right option in the case of that ed goal. And then this stops the incorrect options. We have eliminated sections and questions that don't apply. Again, we did a lot of statistical analysis on that. We eliminated questions that were only about priority registration, since that really doesn't apply to these students. Also residency and citizenship. And so that's kind of one of the approaches that we took, as I mentioned. We have documentation on this. We have quite a bit of documentation. We're going to start opening up on this. We already have a data dictionary. I can show you that shows you explicitly what these data elements are, and you can share that, of course, with your IT staff, and they can see, this will outline, what's there and what's not. And again, that's one of the reasons why we wanted to get this documentation ahead of our pilot, way in advance, was because we really wanted to get the conversation started about, here's what is the proposal, and let's pilot this, and let's come to a consensus about whether this works or we, need to tweak it. Again, we're going to try to hold a pretty hard line on adding things. So please keep that in mind, because we want to keep this streamlined for these students. But we also know we have to balance against making sure staff have what they need to onboard these students effectively, and that's student-centered also. So that is the balancing act that we're going to be doing during our pilot. To give you a comparison, the total data fields that the legacy app have is 237. We have a current dual enrollment workflow that eliminates a few, but we're down to 108 fields. So we have severely cut the number of fields. The questions, it's almost more severe. So data in the background, there's always a lot more fields in CCC Apply than questions. So it's not 237 questions, it's 127. Then there's a lot of residency flags and things that happen in the background that are calculated. So from this, it's almost more dramatic. We have 127 questions that are displayed to the students in the application, only 45 in this. So we have made it almost, cut it by almost 2/3. So this is a drastic cut. And it's intentionally drastic to make it easy. This kind of gives you a breakdown of that. So that's one of the ways we're doing it. Where are we? On the steps to this application, the first one on this new, platform, we want to point out we've been working at this really since back in, we started in 2018 planning it. We executed our first step, which was the SSS 1.0, the new account system with 0 downtime deployments. I'm sure with such a big crowd here, we have many of you who remember the 3-day sometime downtimes for CCC Apply, for the big monolithic, releases we did in the typically the spring and then the fall winter timeframe. We don't do that anymore. We have 0 downtime deployments. The majority, every now and again, will have small downtime. It typically is minutes to maybe an hour at the most, but we've had typically in the year, this allows us to release more rapidly, fix things, maintain things better with 0 downtime. So that was our first big step into this new world. We started the Apply architecture in the 23-24 realm, building all the new design, getting a phase 1 demo and the IDME integration, and then doing some, beta reporting stuff. Now here we are. We've got the end-to-end application. We're going to be running an extended pilot with feedback and making some changes in terms of we have a new way of handling student information, student profile, that is now allowing us to send you changes as they happen. Things like the IDME status, and if that changes because they validate their identity after the application. And that is stuff that we have that's done now. So we're at step 3. And then step 4 is partly the profile and feedback, but also talking about what needs to happen in terms of reporting and what needs to happen in terms of student engagement, which is things like, do we put in a form for them to get parent consent? What messaging do we have for these students? So that's what we're going to be focusing on to finish off the work. All right, so the next steps are also consensus and approval. I keep talking about consensus. This is your application. It's free to you. You don't have to take it if you don't want it. But if you want it, please step up and be involved in some of these pilot testing and let us know what we need to do as a system to make this work. So that is our focus from now until the end of this year, calendar year, is to get consensus from our testers that it includes what's minimally required and it's ready for production. That is our aim for the rest of the year. We're also, as I mentioned, collaborating with the Chancellor's Office to make sure that when we take questions away and, we are including a blank field or a null value where there used to be required information for MIS or for whatever else, that you've got coverage, that, that they understand that this is a dual enrollment student and that that data is going to be blank. We do have a model for this. We've done this before with a non-credit application. We removed citizenship and residency. We have some legislation that may give us some coverage on this, but we are working closely with all of these teams. There's a dual enrollment team, the MIS team, legal counsel and government relations, to get approval for this. So that's going to be happening in parallel with pilot testing, is making sure that you guys have the, that you have that we have the Chancellor's Office stamp of approval for this new approach. So I'm going to talk about our 3 phases of pilot plan for the rest of the year as our way to, as my sister likes to say, suss out, what works and what doesn't and what needs to be tweaked. And that is our focus. The first is our phase 1 pilot. We kicked it off last week. We have a time frame where we're starting mid-April to mid-June. We have these colleges who signed up to be our phase 1. This is going to be, a bit of work for these colleges. They're gathering students. We've asked them to have students who are from their feeder high schools who have no application experience, preferably. We've tested with students who are current students now, and they during our design phase, they brought us really great insight. But the thing that we're finding with those students is, having gone through the legacy apply application, they are wowed. They're so wowed by the new look of things that they just are like, oh, this is the best thing ever. And we're glad to hear that. But we want students with no application experience, because that comparison is a little stark. And if we can get students that don't have a lot of experience, we think we'll get a little more raw feedback on, hey, this part of it sucks, fix this. And that's what we're looking for. We want it to get really beaten up. So thanks to, again, those of you who are here from these colleges. We really, really appreciate your involvement in this. All right, the next phase after that, starting in July as a target, is to have a system-wide open pilot. And then this is actually when we have the branded pilot version with your college logo and everything available to every college. So everyone can kind of pile on and start testing this. We'll have feedback mechanisms and monthly meetings where we'll get feedback. And again, this is your chance to really beat this up. You can invite your students to get in there, current students, former students, whatever, and really give feedback to us on what's working and what's not. The last phase of any major change is user acceptance testing. This is when we do pre-production testing with volunteer students and staff, and this is their, they get a vote on whether we're ready to go live. This is our last phase before production. We will have our documentation, implementation plans, training, system-wide notices, and then a go, no go with all of our stakeholders. And that target timeline is to do that from October to December, and then in 2026, start rolling this out. Again, a lot of these timelines and how soon we get to production depends on how many changes we're requested to make. Our hope is, again, that the initial production release, we can try to convince everyone to go with a minimal possible, and then see what the pain points are, because we want to get this out, and we know it's going to be a helpful tool. So we're going to try to keep it as streamlined as possible. All right, so I talked about student engagement. Also, we need to finish, we have the student engagement system. As I showed you, we have those task cards that we can do. So we're going to be working with pilot testers on defining, again, what is just the minimal things we need for this student group to make sure that they're getting the messaging and the information they need to progress. Reporting requirements, we already have our reporting system. It's already working. We've had production releases on it. What we need to do is find out what are the minimally required reports. We did, again, statistical analysis. The full application lookup report in our CCC Apply Report Center is the most used. That's already done. So that's already in our reporting system. we're now going to talk to you during pilot about what other reports minimally need to be there. So that's what we're doing. Application configuration, terms, majors, we already have this are also already in progress, but we're going to need to make sure what we need minimally on that as well. So those are the 3 areas that we're really focusing on development-wise while we, while we beat up the end-to-end workflow. Okay, so that is pretty much it for the demo. I just wanted to have a nod to our support resources. Remember, we have ccctechnology.info for a lot of information. It's our staff support online site. You can actually, ask questions. You can get information about releases like the dual enrollment release. If you have, problems with CCC Apply or you see error messages, you can email us at staff support@OpenCCC Zendesk, and contact your CEMs, which are our customer experience managers, if you want to talk about adopting this. Eventually when we put it in production, these are the people you can talk to about getting on the list for this new application, getting a training session, or feedback on fraud, whatever. Contact your CEMs. Okay, should we go back to questions?
Yes, I'll do my best to keep up. I started taking notes so I don't lose spot. Let me try to get back. Are there any thoughts of adding questions that align with SB 1244 regarding asking students if they are or identify with being a first-time college students, low-income students, students who are current or former foster youth, homeless students, students with disabilities, and students with dependent children?
So again, part of our feedback from both students and the work group is that most of those questions are about priority registration, right? They actually put the students into, for example, homeless youth, et cetera. And this is priority registration really is not a thing for these students, is the feedback we're getting. Again, I understand, their CCC Apply has 127 questions because all of them except the account fields are required by ed code or legislation, but we also are getting tremendous, frustration in the field about how long it is. So we're taking that challenge and we're throwing it down and we're saying, let's get rid of it if it doesn't apply to these students. So we're serious about that. That's why we're talking to the chancellor's office though, because we understand that you guys are on the hook for these legislation, ed code, and MIS requirements. And that's why we're going through that process of clearing this with the chancellor's office. So we're not going to put something out there that you're going to get in trouble with.
Thank you. If the grad year is before the term start date, will the student be asked to complete the standard application since they will graduate before the start of the term?
Yes, that's exactly how we determine it. Yeah.
Will this application be used for concurrent enrollment students, not dual enrollment as well?
It depends on how many units the concurrent students are taking. So if they hit that like 12 unit cap and they do more, they're going to have to do the standard app.
So related to the units, there has been quite a few questions about CCAP schools. Do CCAP schools, which can take 15 units per term, have to fill out the standard application?
Yes, they would. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
They're considered, right, a quasi full-time student. So
Is age a factor in determining if this application is appropriate for the student who is applying? What happens if a 40-year-old accidentally tries to complete this application?
yeah, actually it's based on the existing CCC Apply age for and Patty's my expert on that if she wants to explain, but this is for adult special admit and for dual enrollment. Patty, I think if they're 40 and they have never graduated, they could still do this application, right? Because they're an adult special admit.
I don't know if you can come off mute and jump in,
Yeah,
Patty.
that's fine. She can type it, or we can follow that up later. But my
Yeah.
understanding is, yes, a 40-year-old could, as long as they haven't graduated, they would be the adult special admit. In the background, they would select the adult special admit value for that student.
Yep. Can we ask if a student intends to take English or math? If they answer no, skip the placement questions.
I'll think about that. Again, that's something that Yeah, I mean, let's think about that. Again, it's a good question. I don't know that I have the answer. I try not to answer things myself. I try to actually figure out what the consensus is in the field. So that'll be a good question for that.
Thank you. One more question on integration. Mike's been talking about it. Superglue is what will be used to deliver the applications. The question was, is there any IT integration work required at the college level for admissions?
Okay, so there's a yes and a no, possibly. It depends on how you're processing the data. So for example, this is going to be delivered in the same staging table as the standard application. There's one new field and that's it. It's an application type that identifies this as a dual enrollment application so that your IT staff can do an automated process that will tell them, hey, in this application row, there's going to be a lot of null values that aren't normally there. And we know that that could actually mess up your system. So we're letting you identify it easily. And there's nothing new in terms of like pulling the record in and creating it in the student account in your SIS system, but there will need to be some analysis by your IT as to, a record that has null values where they expect there to be not null values. So I think there'll be some, but it should be pretty quick because again, it's the same structure for the record and the same data and only one new field.
Hey, Jane, I just want to mark the time. It is 1 p.m. So I'll leave it up to you if you're at the end of your presentation.
I am, and I do have another meeting, but what I'd like is, can we make note of all of these and we'll publish all of the questions and answers when we put the presentation out? Is that a possibility?
So I should automatically get a complete chat log,
okay,
and I will share that with you, Jane. It will be Monday, but I will get it to you. Yeah.
So again, I'm listing our emails here for myself and the product team and your college experience managers for a reason. And that is, if you forgot to chat a question and something strikes you, please send it. This is only going to be as good as we all work together to make it. We are serious when we say that we see you as co-developers with this on this. And our focus is on this system. So let's make it what we need. Thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you. And to reiterate what Sandoval just said, when we send the recording, we will work with the product team to make sure your questions, we capture answers for your questions, and we will send a summary along with the recording so you have that. So,
and we'll have about thank you, Michael. We'll have about 5-10 day turnaround for the recording. Hopefully that's enough bandwidth for the product team to respond to all of the questions. But if not, we will certainly report that when we get the recording out.
We'll follow through.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, Jane. Thanks, Mike, Patty, everyone. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
Mm-hmm.